Did you know that in Helldivers 2, you don't actually have to call in air support when dealing with the Bile Titans? That's right, if you have the railgun equipped, you can actually kill these behemoths in a couple of well-placed shots to the head. In order to do this in the most effective way possible, all you have to do is switch firing mode from safe to unsafe mode on your railgun by pressing and holding your reload button and right-clicking on your mouse, or pressing right on your controller pad. This will allow you to charge up even more powerful shots, signified by this charge meter. But beware, if you charge it too much and it reaches maximum charge before you shoot, you'll blow yourself up. So remember to practice using this alternate firing mode. How's it going, by the way? Mr. Holton here, and today I'll be showing you some of my own tips and tricks to make you a democracy-spreading, bug-exterminating, socialist bot-killing badass, and if you enjoy helpful content like this, then remember to subscribe to the channel. Alright, so let's rewind for a bit and look at some of the basics, yes? Which brings us to number 2 on this list, field of view. In case you didn't already know, Helldivers 2 allows you to change your FOV, and you can find this setting in the display section in the options menu. I really recommend you try having as wide a field of view as possible without inducing dizziness and without impacting your performance too much, meaning you'll have to experiment a little with the setting as you move about the game. Having a lower FOV or the standard works as well and could make it easier for you to aim, but in that case you really should turn off the camera shake function because it becomes extremely obnoxious at lower FOV. However, if you like the chaotic shakiness to make your gameplay feel more impactful, then setting your FOV to a higher setting will help negate the extreme swaying. A higher field of view is pretty self-explanatory. It simply lets you see more of your surrounding at any given moment, which is extremely helpful in Helldivers 2 considering you'll be running into enemies wherever you turn. Now, as we're still talking about aiming, this brings us to tip number 3, accuracy. Helldivers 2 features a very unusual aiming function, at least in third-person mode. You still have your base reticle, but the one you should keep an eye on is this circle that bounces around because this is where your shots will actually go when you fire your gun. Now, as you may have noticed, your bullets go everywhere when you're moving around and shooting at the same time, and it's especially difficult to track your shots whenever you use a machine gun. So, the fix to this is very simple. Stand still. That's all you have to do in order to aim effectively. Now I know how tempting it is to keep running around and kiting a horde of bugs that's closing in on you, but here's the thing. The longer it takes for you to kill them, the more of them will swarm you. So, in a nutshell, engage with the enemy, keep your distance, and run away for a bit while checking how far away the enemies are, then turn around, stand still, and mow them down. If you want to get even tighter control of your death-dealing machine, make sure to crouch or prone before you start firing. I tend to just crouch as it sufficiently kills most recoil with any high-powered guns, and you're not as vulnerable crouching as you are when you are prone.
That's empty!
Tip number 4, combat armor. Now, something that's definitely going to help you aim better is switching your armor, but not because of a higher armor rating, but mainly because of the different armor perks. See, the different armors you can obtain have various abilities that boosts your capabilities as a lethal spokesperson of democracy. And one of these perks is what I like to call the recoil perk, which reduces recoil from firing your gun when in prone or crouching position by 30% more, making this your best friend if you have really shitty aim. That said, while all the combat armors are viable, there are some clear winners here, at least in my opinion, and these are any of the light armors. Now, why I say this is because light armor makes you more maneuverable at the cost of armor rating, meaning you take more damage if an enemy hits you. But while you become squishier, you can actually run quite a bit faster and your stamina recovers quicker. You'll have time to outrun the enemy and get to cover quicker in case you're fighting the automatons, for example. Again, heavy armor is alright, but when you're getting swarmed by enemies and you can't outrun them or mow them down quickly enough, you'll be overwhelmed and killed anyway. So, light armor really is the way to go with this game, at least for the time being. Now that we've covered armor, let's move to tip number 5, stratagems. Now, stratagems is really what this game is all about. Armor and good aim is all well and good, but if you truly want to dominate every single game, then a good combination of stratagems are an absolute necessity, especially on the harder difficulties. Now I know that a lot of you just like to go red and bring in megatons of TNT to reduce your enemies to ash at the press of a button, because there's nothing quite like spreading sweet liberty in the way of dropping a 500 kilo bomb at the top of unsuspecting bug scum. But I'ma stop you right there, because as much as we all love fireworks, it isn't necessarily the most helpful kit to help you win the day. In fact, I'll go ahead and say that the best stratagems are the support stratagems, meaning things such as heavy weapons or backpacks, and yes, that includes the god king of all weapons, the railgun. My go-to must-have stratagem for either solo play or even group play is the personal shield generator, which not only blocks projectiles but also melee attacks, which is extremely helpful no matter how you slice it, but this is especially important if you're using the light armor, because of its lower armor rating, meaning you will no longer get one shot whenever a medium-sized enemy hits you. Well, unless the shield runs out of power, but then all you have to do is just keep your distance until the shield is active again. Now, of course, support items includes things such as sentries as well, and sentries are basically a must-have for any sort of defend-type missions. A tip here is to always place sentries at any high ground where the enemy doesn't reach it, and for mortar sentries, place them behind solid objects such as large rock formations and things like that, since they shoot vertically. Now, since we've come to the conclusion that stratagems are the best tools at your disposal, we also want to be able to use them effectively, which brings us to tip number 6, upgrading your stratagems. If you're planning on playing this game on harder difficulties, then upgrading your stratagems is a must. Not only can you increase the health of your sentries by a whopping 50%, but you can also shorten the time for your orbital and eagle stratagems to reload. In other words, giving you more explosions in any given mission. There are tons of other upgrades here, but it's absolutely vital that you don't forget about upgrading your stratagem, since the best way to succeed in any mission is to have more stuff in order to do more damage. But in order to upgrade your stratagems, you will need a special type of currency. Yes, samples. Now, samples are, aside from medals, the only type of collectible you can find in Helldivers 2, but they come in 3 different variations. That being regular green samples, rare orange samples, and the pink or purple super samples. And you'll need all of them to upgrade your stratagems to their maximum levels. The regular ones can be found on any given difficulty, but you'll gather most of these green ones by doing easy to medium difficulty missions. Rare samples range from challenging difficulty and upwards, and super rare start on the self-obliteration mission difficulty. Now, collecting samples is something that a lot of people just tend to ignore, and so they rush the objective, finish the mission, then hurry to the extraction site, but whoa, it's time for tip number 7. While I fully recommend dealing with all the main objectives first, remember to farm for some samples as well. Not only will you be finding these necessary ingredients to upgrade your stratagems, but you might run across medals as you explore the map. You know, medals being the currency used to buy new gear from the acquisitions menu. So don't rush to extract as soon as you're finished with the main mission. Remember, while getting a timer bonus is nice, it's still just a bonus, and you'll get most of your rewards from finishing objectives and side objectives. Instead, take your time and explore the map. Okay, so now that we've gotten all the necessities out of the way, let's go through some basic alien exterminating tactics, shall we? Tip number 8, eradicating alien scum. First and foremost, whenever dealing with any type of enemy in Helldivers 2, always, and I mean always, aim for the head. It doesn't matter if it's a charger, a Bile Titan, or a Hulk. One well-placed shot to the head with any type of medium armor penetration weapon will always stun them, and in the case of the Hulks, one shot to their head, that being the red eye, will absolutely one-shot them. With the railgun, might I add. Yes, you could also opt out and shoot a charger on one of its forelegs with armor-penetrating weapons, as when the armor gets blown off, you can pepper it with a hail of bullets and kill it relatively quickly. Disabling your enemies is also a pretty good way to deal with them, especially the Devastators, which are the Hulk's smaller siblings. Shooting at their missile ordnances or their shooting arms will completely disable their combat capabilities. So if you're finding it a nuisance to get a clean headshot in, remember that you can always shoot these other parts as well. Shooting off legs and arms is a great way of disabling brood commanders and other various enemies, so keep this in mind. Finally, and now this tip is gonna sound counterintuitive, but you don't always have to engage the enemy, and that means not always dealing with enemy reinforcements, especially when you haven't finished the main objectives first. Remember, on the larger maps, it's always important that you finish your main objectives first. And if you run across an enemy patrol that calls in reinforcements, yet it's on the other side of the map from your main objective, you can just do what I like to call a tactical retreat and just run away and towards your main objective. And in 8 times out of 10, the enemy will lose aggro, which will give you breathing room to deal with your mission first. Now again, you might think that you have to torch the entire map of enemy presence, but remember, the goals of Super Earth comes first, and time is valuable, so don't waste your and your teammates' time by cleansing wave after wave of alien scum if you haven't finished your objectives first. That said, stick with your teammates and don't run off on your own. Well, unless you're playing solo, of course. Alright, that's it for today. If you want more specific guides or tips in future videos, then let me know in the comments below, and if you have a favorite tip of your own, remember to share it with all the other Helldivers out there. For freedom, for liberty, for democracy, Mr. Olton signing out.